on the edge of space, before time began, there was only the hubverse. Sprocketeers avenged clarity, they dismantled obscurity, they danced when the flywheel spun. Here, we bring you the stories and the journeys to becoming the HubSpot superadmin. In this episode, Bob explains his extra gene and dives into what it takes to be a gladiator in the HubSpot superadmin arena. Welcome to the Becoming a HubSpot Superadmin podcast, powered by Sprocketeer, where we're championing the HubSpot superadmin. So with us today, we have Bob Balm. He's the HubSpot consultant and head of Demand Gen at Gradient. He not only does that, but he hosts this awesome podcast. It's called The Secret Ingredient. See what they did? So the Secret Ingredient podcast is where he talks all things demand gen and B2B marketing. The third and final awesome piece about Bob, he's been a Sprocketeer from the beginning. From day one, Bob's been a part of Sprocketeer.Community. Hey, Bob, thanks for being here.
Hey, Grant. Thanks for having me. We're excited.
It's a Friday. It's evening for you. It's afternoon for me. And so that just is going to sound like success. I'm going to transition that one again. It's evening for you and it's afternoon for me. And that's just going to be success for us because it's going to be a great time.
For sure. Yeah. It's Friday. I mean, it's always happy to do this. It's nice and relaxed, Still talking shop, but yeah.
Right. So to kick us off on this Friday, let's hear Bob's favorite HubSpot tool and why that's the tool he picked.
Yeah, that's tricky because the whole package is just like a kid in a candy shop for me. I love like automating and building and connecting things and like integrating other things with HubSpot and making
Give me all the things.
All the things like mad machines of chaos or order.
Or order, right.
Yeah. But the I think it used to be the concept of workflows, just what you can do with workflows, automating things, right? Building processes. But ever since Ops Hub has been released and I got to play with some pretty cool applications of custom code actions, I think that's now competing for the top spot for sure.
Custom coded actions.
Yeah. Just we've done some really cool things for customers of ours who they run a little bit of an atypical setup with perishable products. Let's call it that. So like. Mm-hmm. There's only one product, and when that one is sold, it's gone, right? Like it's
right.
Refurbished machinery, for example. And we've done some cool stuff where we put the products in a custom object, and then use custom quotes and custom quote templates and custom programmable email templates that populate emails or quotes with those custom objects instead of products, it's this. When you look at it, you're really bending the rules or stretching HubSpot to its limits, really. And that's my zone, just seeing how far I can go with HubSpot before it breaks and before it really isn't workable anymore by the people that need to work with it every day. Yeah.
Right, taking those building blocks and building on top of those to get these actions to happen.
Yeah, it's in the Sprocketeer community as well. That's my favorite thing when somebody comes with a case like you go, yeah, that's not possible in HubSpot. But maybe. What if we took this and then, and I love just like typing it out as I think it up and just going, can I do this? And I work at an agency, so sometimes I have to be aware a little bit of, how many hours can I put into this when somebody posts it during the workday, before somebody starts to ask me about my availability and stuff like that. But no, I love that kind of stuff. It's a great distraction, but also like a muscle that you train as a HubSpot superadmin, I guess. Yeah.
Right. Heard. It's still in the wheelhouse and it's that good practice. Okay. Sure. So your favorite custom coded actions. We've said the name Gradient. You've talked about that you have this agency thing that you have to be doing. Give us a couple of statements, Bob, on today, what it is you're doing day to day, and what that role looks like for you work-wise in HubSpot.
Yeah, sure. So I work at Gradient, which is a Dutch, Netherlands-based B2B marketing agency servicing mostly sort of mid-sized SMBs in SaaS, professional services, but also manufacturing, which is manufacturing, automotive, that kind of area, which is a little bit of a more traditional market, I would say, in terms of technological adaptation, things like that. And I got on board there about 2 years ago as the HubSpot consultant. I was the only person who had any background in marketing automation, because it's not just HubSpot that I've been working with. But the agency was a partner, but as is, I don't want to say typical, but I have seen this before, where they become a partner first, and then they sell a couple of projects, and then it's like, oh, maybe it would be nice to have somebody in-house who knows about this software now that we've sold it, you know. So that's kind of how that grew. And so initially it was a lot of HubSpot implementation and consultancy work, execution, so building workflows, setting up emails. But, you know, I've been doing that for quite some time as a freelancer and with other agencies before that. So I also wanted to develop a bit more towards the strategic side of things, and not just be stuck in sort of the day-to-day operation of things. So fortunately, I managed to hire a little bit of a team around me. Sorry, just had some food. So yeah, team. We're now a team of. We were 4 for a brief moment, then one of them left, but we've got a new one already. So. From January on, it was a team of 4 of us doing HubSpot things.
Right.
And yeah, so me and myself, I'll be sort of stepping back from the more simple stuff within HubSpot, I guess, in line with the earlier Mad Hattery, if you will. I'll be sort of involved in the more challenging architectures, solution architect situations, basically, where the rest of the team picks up the more day-to-day support for HubSpot. And that brings me to sort of the other part of what I do on a day-to-day basis, which is sort of building our proposition around demand gen, which is like a more marketing strategic thing as a whole, right? Because we're a HubSpot partner, but we're a B2B marketing holistic agency first, right? And HubSpot is just part of the package. And you know, with the rise of I want to say demand gen as a theme, or I almost want to say hype. Now, but to me it's just good marketing, really. Like, I don't want to like push that button of demand gen. That's the holy thing. You have to do it now and then be about something else in 2 years. But that's something that we really believe in strongly at Gradient, that we want to build our proposition about that. Also do our own marketing around that, and just claim our little piece of the pie in terms of thought leadership. So that's what I'm doing more now at Gradient for our customers, but also for Gradient itself. You know, doing our own demand gen, basically. And HubSpot is becoming a little bit of a secondary thing now. But yeah, for sure, it's still my hobby. I still, like I said, I still get like super excited when I get to automate things and then build these crazy architectures and machines. And then,
it is so much fun to hear. Like, you have so much experience with it that you can think through how to build it, or you could, as you're typing it out, you could be thinking through how's this actually going to work?
Yeah. For sure. It's a gene almost, I think. Well, maybe not almost. I'm convinced it runs in the family, because I don't know if it's like the male line of my family, the Balms, right? My dad, my uncle, his 2 sons, so my cousins, we all have this sort of, we call it the MacGyver gene. And it's this natural instinct that we have to immediately start thinking in solutions and like, you know, what if we, you know, it could be something that's broken in the house. It could be, you know, just like me in the digital space. My cousin is vice president something at Thales, which is a big. I'm not sure if they're how international they are, but it's a fairly big security concern. They do all kinds of sort of security, crowd control, that kind of stuff.
Okay.
So he manages these things at big events like Tour de France start in my home city a couple of years back. So it runs in the family. Like all of us, we have this sort of this gene that we apply in our day-to-day lives, which is fascinating to see, really. I remember when I first realized that, I was like, wait, so this is something I have and that I can use.
This is like a me thing. Everyone doesn't do this?
It's my superpower, right? I mean, that's
it
for sure.
Totally is. Yes.
Yeah, absolutely.
Whether you're looking down at a whole host of Lego pieces and you can see something that you can put together.
Speaking of which,
yeah, your car in the back is what?
It's not just a car; it's the flowers. It's that thing.
Is it the flowers? I just saw the flowers at a store over the weekend.
Yeah, it's the flower pack. Yeah, so I'm not that big of a Lego nerd, but it seemed
you got to have some
actually.
pieces.
I discovered that gene thing first, and I figured maybe Lego would be a nice thing to sort of add to that. And it does kind of add up.
Seeing a whole bunch of different pieces in front of you, Bob, and then being able to say, okay, based on from these, what can I build? Allows a couple things that I know works for me is that, well, if I can see this big thing that what I can build it into, well, then also that means that if there's something missing, I could kind of imagine that out of it we could build this big project. And also, if I can see that project, then I can see out of the mix what's missing. And I think for you in HubSpot, whenever I see your messages, it's that you can see the big picture from the pieces, but you can also identify that there might be a couple things missing you have to build in order for this thing to work.
Yeah, for sure. And it helps me every day also in like briefing developers. Like I don't write code. I mean, if you gave me a blank notepad thing and told me to write some JavaScript, I'd be like, I don't know. But I can kind of read it. When I read it, I go, okay, I think that bit is doing this. And then just from that, you kind of get an idea of what's possible and how all these pieces fit together. And it makes it really easy to talk to somebody who thinks exclusively in zeros and ones, almost.
Right.
and be able sort of to explain it. Like I imagine a solution that does this, and then not just speak in the sort of abstract terms that a typical, I don't know, marketing manager or something.
Sure. You can talk about the modules. You talk about the variables you need.
Yeah, exactly. I can say things like, I needed to pass a variable to this and this, and without saying, I need the thing, and it needs to do this. Like it's so. I don't know what. I always thought that was a handy skill to be sort of as an interpreter in between those two parties, or just briefing it myself. Yeah, helps a lot.
So tell us then, go back to the first thing you started doing when you started using HubSpot. What did that look like? What was it transitioning from? And what was that first thing you did when you started using HubSpot for the first time?
I think what makes this a little bit tricky is that my first foray into marketing automation wasn't with HubSpot. So HubSpot kind of came, I don't really remember. I think the first time I really started power using it was at Gradient here, which is only 2 years ago. And it feels like I've been using it for so much longer, probably because of the super intuitive user interface. But I actually started out with Oracle Eloqua. I don't know if you heard of this, but I won't go too deep inside of it here. But it's compared to HubSpot, it's we always make fun of Salesforce, but I think Eloqua is just as bad, if not way worse.
Even worse.
It's it's like taking a space shuttle as a complete newbie, as the janitor at Cape Canaveral, and just go and say, here, fly this to the moon, please. That
go ahead.
Ancient interface, and but it did have a couple of things that, again, the first thing that I really fell for there was their version of HubSpot's workflows. The campaign canvas, and you could just drag these modules around and connect them with like little wires and things like that. And that was
one of the things that I really loved about Outlook, Microsoft Outlook. As many faults as the Microsoft suite had, Outlook, you could drag and drop these little modules and they would work together, and it was pretty amazing.
I think,
So
I mean, I don't have experience
akin
with that, but yeah, but I mean, it's that sort of the playfulness, I guess, of, to me, that's a funny thing also. It's never, to me, HubSpot has never felt like work for me. It's always felt like a toy, you know, like, and sometimes it's good to realize, like, wait, there's businesses pouring tens of thousands of dollars into this, and they depend on it to do their business. But for me, it's almost like the Legos, you know, it's like a playground, where I can build these things. And obviously, you know, I've definitely learned that early on, is that you got to be careful with this kind of stuff. You don't want to, you know, but it does give me a certain, I want to say, courage, or you should just go in and see, like, oh, maybe I can build it like this, or maybe I can build it like that. Whereas somebody who doesn't have that maybe would be more like, I don't know, I got to figure this out, or can I try? I'll just go and build it and then see if it works or not. Yeah. I mean, it's a good thing that as a agency partner, we do have like a enterprise playground that we can use, which does definitely help a lot, is with the risk mitigation in terms of, because I have in the past, you know, built stuff or tried stuff on live and then figured out, oh, this doesn't work. And I kind of did something almost irreversible.
Right. Who hasn't? I don't think you get to the level you're at, Bob, until you have.
No, you got to break a few.
Run an import that you didn't want to run.
Yeah.
Or you started a workflow and enrollment is not the way you want.
Accidentally enrolled all those 10,000 contacts again. Maybe we need to type up an excuse me, sorry email. Yeah, that's it's happened to me in the past, but it's like, yeah, I'm glad that I have that environment now. So it's a little.
You started with this B2B thing with the Oracle UI and that play. I love that you said, and you came upon it too. It's just like, it feels like play. I completely empathize with you on that. And so that translated directly. You went from your Oracle time to HubSpot.
No, because actually that was my first agency gig, and then from there I went on as a freelance person for about 3 years, sort of gun for hire for agencies who basically had the same problem. Like we did Oracle, the Eloqua thing, or HubSpot. I did some other platforms as well, where they said, you know, we need some extra hands, or we got a customer and we're technically not a partner, but we need somebody who can help us with doing this.
Yeah.
Which was good, but I also want to be sort of close to the action, right?
Yeah.
And I found that as a freelancer, I would get hired by the agency, and the agency would do something that the customer wanted, and I want to be there with the customer talking about what is a good strategy. You know, don't just throw nurture flows out there, but actually think, you know, what's good for the customer, what do they need?
Right.
Just the sort of because, you know, HubSpot, obviously it's front office, but I traditionally am a marketeer, so that stays in the mix. And I just found that as a freelancer, I wasn't getting enough of that. And the other part that I did at the same time as freelancing is I sort of had my own consulting gig, helping businesses or solopreneurs sort of build their business, which didn't necessarily depend on marketing automation, but it had that same sort of playfulness of building a machine, right? And then sort of seeing the big picture and all these cogs in the machine sort of working together and making like automated processes to help these people scale their business and free up their own time.
Right.
Which I had a lot of great ideas about that, but it was my first real gig as an entrepreneur. I didn't know anything about all of that, you know, so I got a little, you know, tired of that, burnt out, and it wasn't really for me at that time. I'm sure that I'll revisit it sometime in the future, because those ideas never stop, you know, that's something that's always going on. But I went to, it's the same as I came to Gradient as a freelancer initially. Somebody went on maternity leave. I filled in the blank basically, and then just stuck around, put the freelance cap on the, what's the proverbial thing? I don't know.
And when you came into Gradient, you were still doing HubSpot implementate. They needed something done, and you would execute that.
Yeah, pretty much. I think I'm trying to remember if I did, because I'm sure I did some Oh, actually, yeah. How could I forget? I did a sort of a interim gig as a freelancer before Gradient at a recruitment agency for about 6 months or so, working with HubSpot, but very minimal. Like it was building a nurture flows, basically, or like a webinar flow.
Yeah.
To me, very basic stuff, not very architecturally challenging, basically. And that was the extent of my HubSpot experience, which I basically got just by already knowing a lot about Oracle Eloqua. And then I got into Gradient, where immediately I was sort of put on projects where it was, we're starting from scratch. We're implementing HubSpot marketing and sales at this company. We're doing something with APIs over here. We don't know any of this stuff, Bob. Can you figure this out and help us? Yeah, please. You're the HubSpot guy now. And so to me, it was like, oh yeah, sure. I'll give it to me. I'll figure it out. And then it grew from there. And it was just, yeah, it's great. I've learned in the past 2 years, I've just sort of absorbed all that. Like every time I got to use a new piece of HubSpot, because that's basically it, right? It's a huge playground, but not every customer uses everything. Far from it. Usually it's just the tip of the iceberg. So every time something new comes in, I'm like, oh yeah, now I can use custom behavioral events, or now I get to use custom code, or like the custom modules that you can build, or custom quote templates, playbooks, all that stuff.
Fantastic.
Yeah, it's every time to me, it's like almost like Christmas morning when you get to do a new implementation that has that new bit of it. Yeah.
The new, I like that. The new beta, the self-selecting of which betas you want to be a part of. That is just like Christmas.
Yeah.
Which ones do I want to play with?
And I don't have to like send the email and then hope that they assign it to that portal that I asked them for. No, I could do it myself. Wow. Yeah, that's fantastic.
That's where you came into Gradient, and thus then your HubSpot journey, so to speak. Yep. Okay, so then take us from there, Bob. So from there to then today, give us a couple milestones that as you look back, what were some fun things that you did for the first time that were exciting, or, your first import of 10,000 contacts or more or something? What were some things as you look back that were impactful for you?
Yeah, I think like the imports that never really made me that nervous, and I already done quite some big ones earlier. But just looking back, it's the company I talked about earlier with refurbished machinery. They buy, they refurbish, and then sell used forklifts to forklift dealers, right? So they're very much in the back of the chain, basically. But it's like this family business that's been around for like 70 plus years. Handed down through the generations. It's really interesting to see that. Like it's the current owner of the business, I think, is the grandson of the founder. Yeah. And it's a family business, and there's a lot of expertise around all these. It's like a whole new world. That's just a sidebar. That's another fantastic thing about working at an agency is you get all these different agents or different businesses that you never imagined would even exist, right? And you get all that stuff. So yeah, like I said, they have this perishable product, basically. Like they buy a forklift. It has like its own unique identification number, and it goes onto the website. And what's fascinating is these people, it's like a cow market almost, They throw up the new stock every day, like 10 or so new machines come in, and there's literally these brokers almost on the website hitting refresh, what's new, what's in stock, and then they'll pick up the phone, and like it goes up at 9, and they'll pick up the phone 9:15 saying, I want this one, that one, and throw in a good deal for another machine, and then bam, sold. So it's a really fast moving business, especially with COVID. The demand was really high, and supply currently it's still pretty low, but they had, despite COVID, they had some pretty good months. And one of the big things that they had as part of their, what was important for their business core process is the daily stock email, right? So new stock comes in. Everybody who subscribed to that email gets the email saying, this is what's new in stock every day. And they say, well, we want to send that email from HubSpot because we want to get stats and everything on it. Right. And this was right about the time, just a bit before the programmable email beta came out. So I had to figure out like, all right, because if we want to send out that email, it's no way that we're going to ask that marketeer to build out like a list of products in the email by typing manually, like typing in, because that was one big thing they hated about their current system was they had to, they did find like a back-end solution to do like, it was sent from the website or something like a server thing.
Yeah.
For the listing of the stock, but if they had like special emails they wanted to send in addition to those, they had to manually create the entire email, right? And I was like, yeah. And it was this, there's nothing against it, but she's like a, thinking if this is going to bite me in the ass if I call her an older woman, but it wasn't a millennial, let's put it that way. And
a more veteran employee.
More veteran employee, yes. She'd been with the company since early 90s, I think. Nothing but respect for her because she's been doing like copy as in
typing it out,
making the physical magazines, pasting pictures of the thing in there with tape and then putting it in like these machines to make like a physical magazine out of it. They had that on site, like a printing room basically to make the magazines. And she came from there and she's now using this system to, I just like how I helped somebody like that save tons of time, because now she goes in, says create an email, clicks the email, and then she just has to type in like the identification number of the vehicle, and it goes boom, and then it just shows,
all
title,
the info,
image, all the specs, price, button, everything. It's in there. And that was the
all
initial
she has
thing
to do now is input the new ones that are in.
Yep. Yeah. And we're playing now with some extra. It's just basically it's a module that pulls does a query on the CRM object or the custom object. So we're working with like she could put in like different types of queries, like brand name or engine type or combinations of the two, and then she could just put that in the interface of the email, and it just loads them in. That's when you see that in action. That's the type of stuff that gets me all like, I built like this thing. And
it just
it works. Well, the developers built it, but I thought of it, and it works. Yeah. And then somebody's actually getting like their time back and So that's a great thing to see that it has impact on it. Yeah.
What an awesome milestone to see. Yeah. And like you said, the impact on that person's job, but also on people receive this email and they literally are doing better in their business then too. And this business is running better.
Yeah. For sure.
That's cool to see.
Yeah. And so that was before the programmable email beta came in, which, so I still didn't have a solution for how am I going to get that email out every day that automatically has the machines uploaded that day. Right. So then, we had to do this thing with, the interesting thing there was working closely together with HubSpot, that as they were sort of releasing that beta, they gave us, I'm not sure if it was like super early access, but I'm pretty sure that we had access to it before it became like a public beta thing. I don't know if that's even possible, but, and the back and forth with the solution engineers just to get this to work. Cause we were like, the deal was kind of hinging on it. We had already sort of sold it, but then discovered like, oh, we can't actually build this shit. We solved this. And then, going back and forth, like, but can it do this? Because I had to sort of convince them to because they were on Pro initially. I had to convince them to go to Enterprise,
go up to
on
Enterprise.
The risk of the feature not actually doing what they needed. So that was tricky trying to negotiate. And then it turned out that it was exactly what we needed, basically, and it worked flawlessly out of the gate. Which was, speaking of milestones, that was a big one when we had that first email, and it was like, nice. Like every day we send the email out and there's no input from our side. It just goes every day, just goes out the way. And every day because I'm subscribed to it as well.
Yes.
At the beginning, every day I was like, I'm going to open it. See, does it actually have the machines in there? Is it, because like if it doesn't have those machines, I'll have a very angry customer on the phone really quickly.
Already. Immediately. Because like you said, it's fast. So you'll hear about it. It's not a day or a week later. Because their customers are going to be like, I just got an email saying, here's the new supply. And it was like a blank email. What gives? Is that what happens? That's what happens, right? Yeah. Or something like that. Yeah. For sure. So it did so
happen
now
a couple
at
of
this
times.
point, it just goes out every day automatically, and it pulls every
Yeah.
day the newly uploaded time-based machines.
It's we built some. We used custom code when that was released, or we got access to Operations Hub on that portal. We used that to build in some extra security to basically first pull the database to say, look, do I actually have any machines that meet these
Sure.
criteria? Because if not, I'm not sending the email. Before that, we had a fallback that said, dear customer, unfortunately, there are no machines today. Here's a button to browse the rest that we have on offer.
Nice.
Sort of as a, worst case scenario, at least it would be something.
Something. They'll receive something because they'll be like, where's my
They'll receive
email?
something and it won't be like a blank email. And
Yeah.
but we there was some interference at some point with the API connection that would upload the machines to HubSpot. So we had like 2 or 3 days in a row where that email got sent. Yeah, and then it gets awkward, So I was happy that we got ops up in there at some point to build that little custom code action that had that extra layer of security in there. So
That's
that was a mini milestone after that one. Yeah.
But
it's
any other
things like that.
milestones? Yeah.
It's I'm just thinking because these are all sort of on the more technical side. There's another one where we almost used exactly the same system to a trucking company to help them sell their used trucks, where we built an interface in HubSpot where they can create quotes with the trucks in there and then send those out. Where you have to do like these little workarounds because building a quote, you still have to add line items. But they weren't actually using line items to populate the quotes. So we have these like dummy line items in there, which is a little confusing to their sales reps at first. But we kind of made that work so that it doesn't look like it sticks together from duct tape. And but it works. And there's this business, and they went because they came from Excel. So these people are going, oh, we're so happy that we have this system now. And now we've got like contacts, and we open the contact. We can see exactly which trucks they bought in the past, and it's associated with the company. And then you got the deals and the quotes, and then the deals are associated with vehicles, and the vehicle delivery pipeline is there as well. When it comes on site from the body workshop, and all these, all of that, and it was a lot of work at the back because you're working with maybe that was another milestone, working with a salesperson, because most of the time I'm fortunate enough to work with somebody on the other side who's at least a little bit trained in digital systems or architecture, somewhat like that. Right. But this was a salesperson, right? It's like you have to imagine a dealership where they're sitting in the little area above it, and downstairs is nothing but trucks.
Yep.
And their job is to walk around the showroom and sell trucks to people. And now you have to ask this guy about, what do you want your CRM process to look like? Where he comes from Excel, right?
I want to walk downstairs and talk to people.
Yeah. So that was it was very interesting because this was an impatient man, demanding, I want to say, rightfully so. I mean, he paid a lot of money, but very nice guy. But it was interesting to negotiate that language barrier almost. Like you have your own sort of questions, like, how do you want to automate this workflow so that you get notification? And he goes, I don't know. This was a guy who had to call up IT because he forgot his password. Like when we were on a live chat, he said, I have to enter a password. I don't know how to do this. I'll call support. And I'm going, wait, this is, salt of the earth.
You have to work with
but
this person, and he doesn't even know what you just said. You said a sentence. He doesn't even know the sentence.
Yeah, exactly. And it sort of, that's another interesting aspect of the job, I think. To not just understand what you're doing.
Yeah, you could know everything about what you know.
But this guy I have to find a way to ask this guy the right questions so that I get the information that I need to build the process, because you can build it in so many different ways. And all this guy says is, I kind of want it to look like this, and gives you a cartoon picture of it, something like that. So then it was a lot of iteration there where you're building it based on your first guess, and then you walk them through it, and they go, oh yeah, but this is how I imagined it, but no, it doesn't work like that because it works like this. And then you go all right, okay, so now I'm getting the way so you have to almost intentionally build it with only 50% of the information, just so you can show it to them and then get the missing pieces in there. Right. That was an interesting dynamic as well. Yeah.
What a great milestone in design and strategy and facilitating a conversation that you're speaking to your audience, not to your expertise. Your expertise is on display because you've enabled a conversation, not because you've clicked the right buttons or typed the right code.
Yeah. I think that's for HubSpot superadmins everywhere. that is maybe at least half the job, right?
Right.
The system is one area, one arena, basically, and understanding what's required and being able to translate that into normal human speak, I want to say, is another arena that we're gladiators in. Agreed.
Well said. If you identify with Bob if you're listening and you identify with Bob, that, man, the system is half. Speaking to people about it is the other half. Go say hi to Bob on LinkedIn or on Discord at Bob and say, heard. Tell him that you feel the same way.
Yeah, for sure. Love to riff more about this. I always love it.
Yeah. This would be a good topic to talk about, that we get so deep on the technical. I'm so glad you surfaced that's really, sometimes it can be the whole job. Sometimes it's actually really easy, but the conversations.
I've had customers where it was even worse than this, where because in this case I had to build something really technical as well. Yeah. But I've had to do like the simplest implementations, HubSpot starter, but I had to sell it to somebody who was, hard to work with. Let's put it that way.
Understood. The flip phone people of the world who, that's almost like part of their personality.
Yeah. Business owner, busy with tons of other things, just wants it to work.
Right.
Doesn't maybe regard you, just regards you as a sort of, just make it work. I'm paying you, Yeah. And that, then that was a difficult one as well, because for me it was like, but I know all this stuff, for me this is the super simplest thing, but I cannot somehow get through to this person or communicate on the same level as this person, because it's not her fault, right? She's doing the best she can.
Agreed.
But there's this, then you really notice like, oh, that's part of this gig as well, is to bridge that gap between, like a language barrier. It feels almost the same, or cultural differences.
Agreed. It's something on the same level. We'll have to there's something here. I don't know what it is yet, but there's a whole conversation here, or a whole series. Let's see. Next question is about going back through again, Bob. I'd love for you to go back through your start to finish experience. Instead of milestones, though, talk to us about some people, call out their names, and let us know the story of some people that made an impact on you, or that you're grateful to have worked with for some reason.
Well, I think a very big one that you also obviously know is Kyle Jepsen.
Right.
Who I think the first thing that I saw of him wasn't even his amazing presence and personality that he displays every day on LinkedIn when he does like the updates. It was actually a written article that he wrote about how to set up your deal pipeline, the stages, how to come up with those. And that is one that every time today that I'm doing a deal pipeline setup, that's the thing I pick, because it just makes so much sense, like to have your pipelines organized by the phase that the buyer is in, rather than the many more phases that you're likely to come up with if you look at just your own process.
Right. And doesn't he add to that they need to be past tense?
Biocentric past tense completed. Yeah, those, like that little exercise that's in there. It's so simple, but it's so powerful. And I teach it to the people here as well, like at Gradient, the new folks. I said, like, if you do a pipeline setup, because that's something that they all have to do at some point, right? You're like, this is your process. Just take it and walk with it.
Awesome.
So that's one thing that's the first thing I think I saw from him. Then probably some academy stuff as well. And today, obviously, what he's doing with just being the almost the voice of the superadmin at HubSpot, I guess. I don't
Mm-hmm.
know if I could call it that, but and his daily updates. My coworkers who are in marketing, but don't necessarily do stuff with HubSpot, even they know about him because I occasionally share like the videos on Slack, and they just go like, "Oh, this guy, I love his like wacky energy level that he throws into this stuff. It's fantastic." So yeah,
So good.
if you can achieve that in your community with that much energy, and I think he's even more than us, has that
Yes.
sort of
Yes.
childlike, in a good way, playful energy. For him, obviously, it looks like a playground. I guess.
Yes.
Like,
Yes.
look at what we can now do. I love that.
It's so exciting.
So
Yeah,
big
and
shout out to him for that.
Shout out to Kyle. Heard.
Yeah. So that's one, and another big one that has sort of influenced my whole career, I think, for the past 2 or 3 years or so, but has managed to put into words also the things that I always believed about B2B strategy, B2B marketing strategy as a whole, but never was able to articulate as well as him, is Chris Walker, who I'm sure you've heard of or maybe follow a little bit as well. I'm always kind of conscious of that. That's demand gen or B2B marketing or whatever you want to call his sort of arena. We're in maybe a little bit more of the technical side. I think a lot of people will have heard of him in the Sprocketeer community as well.
Yeah.
But I can understand that some of those are more in the sales or RevOps or DevOps or things like that arena. If you don't know him, basically he's put the term demand gen on the map. I think the past 3 years or so, he's got this fantastic podcast that sort of really early days. He started as a sort of like during the pandemic, kind of like an experiment together with his connection of him, a friend of him, Gaetano Dinardi, and they were just riffing about B2B marketing stuff in general. And it's been fantastic to sort of follow along with that and see him develop his own point of views, his own perspectives, basically, on how good B2B marketing should function, and the power and sort of firmness or conviction, I guess, that he puts into explaining how it works, has made him like almost into this superstar in that space. And I can say that we're modeling a lot of the stuff that we're doing with Gradient when it comes to demand gen after his teachings. I almost want to say it's almost like that, right? It's almost like a gospel-like following, I guess.
Sure.
Yeah.
If he's developing it in front of you and finding the words, it's almost like you're following along and you're finding your own words.
Fantastic. Yeah, it's. I mean, that's what inspired our podcast as well. And it's not just parroting after him and saying when somebody asks me a question like how does demand gen work, it's not like I go and Chris Walker demand gen and then just sort of read aloud what's on his page.
Yeah.
No, it's the like I said, he's been able to articulate how I feel about it, how I felt about it already, and he's given me almost like the tools or the vocabulary or the building blocks to build this into a framework that we as Gradient can work with as well, and that I can use to help my customers understand demand gen and implement it for themselves, which I know he's done that for many, and I have no illusion that he'll see this stuff, but it's a shout out nonetheless to all the great stuff that he's doing. Yeah.
That's fantastic. I love to hear that it's impactful to you, that it's not necessarily a course of here are the steps because I have everything figured out. It's that he has had the conversation publicly, and then you've benefited by hearing him work through the answer or through at least the topics that speak to you.
Absolutely. Yeah. And like I said, it's not, feels like I want to defend it or somehow, but it really isn't like copy pasting the things that he's saying. Like, I'm just going to, because that's my one sort of go-to guy. And he says it should be like this, so it should be like this. No. There's definitely a sort of a layer of critical thinking in between there going like, does it work that way? and make it go through my head, and then sort of applying it to the cases that I have in front of me of my own clients or the clients at Gradient, and and then internalizing it, making it your own, and all that stuff. So, yeah.
Right. Any other impact or people you're grateful for along the way?
Yeah, I can put it closer to home. I guess the owners of Gradient, because I've been at a couple of agencies, and what I've seen is this. It seems like a lot of agencies at the tipping point between startup and scale up. Like there's a sort of a milestone that they all seem to hit at about 15 to 20 FTE. You need to grow. You need to go past a bump in the road, basically. Mm-hmm. And that's where either people agencies they sort of stay there, or they break down, they don't make it, or they sort of scale back down, and a few actually make it past the bump, right? Yeah. And the cool thing about Gradient is they hit that bump before. They almost went bankrupt because they tried to build a different, like a data product on the side. So it was instead of focusing on the one thing that you're good at, what I see a lot of business owners do, I guess, is this thing is working for me. Now I'm going to build this other thing next to it and do that as well. And then they both kind of sort of suffer from it, And the cool thing about Gradient is that the owners, they went there, they fell on their face, but they went through it, and they, came back stronger because of it.
Nice.
And now they're reaping the benefits of that, because all of that knowledge and experience that they've had with the failure, basically,
right,
now helps them navigate the sort of the tricky parts of this. And there's one of the things, for example, that I'm grateful for is that as an agency, you got to have your billables. You got to be sort of like, let's say 80% billable or something as a person at an agency that delivers the work.
Right.
So something like, hey, what's our demand gen process look like? How do we do our own marketing? And all of that stuff, it's non-billable. So it needs to come from somewhere. You need to create that room. And I'm very grateful that the owners at Gradient not just created that room, but they share the vision as well. So, like I said, the Chris Walker thing, Rick, the whole demand gen idea behind that has been embraced by the management team at Gradient. To a big level, they understand marketing as a playing field, and that's needed for an agency as well. And the opportunity that lies before us if we, just prioritize a little bit, doing some marketing of our own. That's a tricky thing, right? I know a lot of agencies have this problem, is that there's a Dutch phrase that's something like it leaks at the plumber's house. I don't know if there's a similar thing in English. I can't think of one right now, but that's the ironic thing. And like I said, grateful that there's space and priority being given to initiatives like that to build that out, and that I get to be the person that does it.
Right. So on top of that, they're going about it in a way that is that feels right, that's open, and they're actually doing it. But also, you're the one that gets to lead it, and it feels like that's a privilege. What a great call out, Bob.
Yeah, because these weren't just the sure, it's their ideas too, but it's the freedom that I get to take the ideas that I have in my head and sort of turn them into reality.
Right.
Which is not a given if you're not at like C-level or like high management. Sure, ideas that you can put into practice for the customer, but this is a helping steer the course of the company, right?
Right.
I mean, I'm not the captain on the ship, but I like that sort of position of being the trusted right hand or something, right?
But your hands are on the wheel. You're not the captain of the ship, but your hands are on the wheel.
Yeah. And that's always been my sort of position that I like. That's also maybe why the sort of solo entrepreneur thing felt difficult for me at first, because then you're the end boss, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm more of what's that guy? Iron Man sidekick.
Iron Man and Winter Soldier.
No. War Machine.
War Machine.
But his name, like I forgot his actual real life name.
Rogers. No, that's
Colonel Rogers. No,
Colonel Rogers.
That's Steve Rogers. Yeah. No. I blank, but yeah, just
he's right there, I think.
Somewhere in there. Yeah. So I'm not sure if that guy is the first one that comes to mind.
Colonel
but
Rhodes.
That's the one. Yeah. Captain Rogers.
Yeah.
Captain America. It's not Colonel America. It's Captain America.
It's Captain America. It's Colonel Rogers. Or Colonel Rhodes.
Colonel Rhodes.
Oh my gosh.
Captain Rogers.
We're keeping this in, but everyone can totally make fun of us. Those of you listening right now. Yes. It is Friday, and I was not in Marvel territory in my brain.
Yeah. So anyway, I'm just thinking I'm sure there's some kind of movie or whatever analogy in there, but that's a position that I'd like to be in, to sort of that faithful right-hand man.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever, yeah.
Understood.
Not the full responsibility, but the room that I have to sort of experiment a little with the creative ideas that I have in my head, and that's fantastic. Yeah.
Well, on that note, what is the direction you're going? So our last question here on the podcast is going to be Bob 2032.
Yeah.
What is he doing? And he, let's hypothetically say he's standing in front of you right now. What kind of things is he talking to you about? Either reminding you or reassuring that you're doing and you're doing them well. What does he say? What is he doing?
So I've expressed this to the management at Gradient as well, which is I want to be the best B2B marketer in the Netherlands. That's a goal, and that's a bold statement, and one that I'm not typically a person that makes bold statements like that, right? I'm not that sort of gonna grind what's it called? The hustle
not in your nature.
Sort of, no, I'm a sort of more tentative person, I guess. But it's a goal that I've said it a couple of times. Even just saying it now, it does feel like it has a little sort of gravitas to it, But it's a BHAG, and a BHAG, it's a big, hairy, audacious goal, right?
Yep.
It's not necessarily something that has to be attained exactly like that, but it's just like we're putting it there. So I feel fairly confident saying that I want to be the best B2B marketer in the Netherlands. And that's the steps that I'm taking now to do that. I'm very happy to have that sort of technical background, and we'll keep nurturing that. But over the last couple of years, I've been exploring the strategy more and more, like how do you build a good B2B marketing strategy that doesn't just involve saying we're going to, write ebooks or write blogs or publish social posts. That's not a strategy. A strategy is looking at what's the business target, what are we currently at, what's the gap look like, how can we fill that up?
Yes.
Thinking at that level, sort of the business level, and that's the sort of new, I don't want to say fascination, but new door that I've sort of opened up and started poking around in. So that's kind of and this other thing that I have in my head to get there, right, is to at one day in the future. Not fairly soon, but 5 years or so, I don't know, is to go to the other side, the client side, let's put it that way. And as a sort of a CMO at a startup scale up, build this from scratch. Take all the stuff that I've learned about the technology, the content, how do you write good content and stuff like that. I have a little bit of a knack for that. I'm not a copywriter, but
yes,
the strategy, doing that at a sort of strategic level, and then sort of building it out for myself, because that's a need that I feel still. And sometimes it feels a little disappointing sitting at an agency where you're dependent on somebody else's budget, drive, understanding to be able to fulfill that. But I know all this stuff, and now I want to see it in action, right? I want to see those strategies that Chris Walker talks about, those pipelines with the automations and all the clever stuff that is possible in HubSpot. I want to sort of build, maybe not the biggest, but definitely the most efficient. I want to take it all and build it into what it could be for a business, you know? So that has been an interesting thing in my development as well, is sort of managing when I feel a sense of accomplishment. Because if you're always striving for that hugely big machine, you're going to get disappointed all the time, because that's probably not going to happen with like 90% of your customers, because they move at a slower pace. So that's one thing, just on that path to growth there. And if that person was there saying things now, it would probably be, you're on the right path, but be sure to be disciplined enough to take those ideas in your head, which are really good, and share them with the world. Because that's another thing. I've had these sort of, if I'm really honest with myself, that's a thing that I'm struggling with, and I cannot continue to blame it on like outside factors, is that my presence in LinkedIn or podcasts or whatever has been in sort of bursts, right? Like 3-4 months going well, and then something happens. I went on vacation. That's the last thing that sort of threw a wrench in the thing for 3 weeks. Then I had to catch up on some work, and then this stuff falls behind again. And I really need to pick it up, because I know that this is going to get me places. It's going to get me that because I notice it already. Like the initial couple of podcasts that we did, get these great responses from people, the exact type of response that you're looking for in ICP, customer profile, people saying, this is great stuff, and I'm learning from this. And then, okay, so we got to do more of that.
Yeah, we need more of this. They're looking for it.
Exactly.
They're saying they're looking for it.
Yeah, exactly. So I think that's something that they would be reminding me of, to basically say, keep doing this, and be sure to find that discipline to commit to it, and find a consistent way to bring it out there. And the other thing would be, like I said earlier, is don't forget to celebrate the smaller victories as well, because the big things will come.
Celebrate along the way as well.
Yeah, exactly.
Love to hear that you feel like you have the humility to say to yourself, I'm doing right things. Do more of that. Do more frequently. It is the right thing. Just keep at it. Yeah. Then celebrate the small wins along the way too. Feels very human.
It sounds a bit cheesy, maybe, like it's those types of inspirational quotes that you would see on posters and everything, but they're there for a reason, I think, because it sounds like I've had like years of experience being like a solo entrepreneur or anything, but I'm 34 now. What I find fascinating, at any rate, is just looking at how I, as a human being, and I'm sure other people have this as well, at least I hope that a lot of people have the same type of experience, looking at yourself and seeing yourself grow is this very satisfying experience.
Right.
Understanding more about yourself. That's basically like I said earlier, the MacGyver gene thing, that sort of clicked when I was 28, 29 or something. And the power and the confidence it gives to understand that about yourself, because then you can start using it. And I think a lot of people have this sort of vague idea about who they are and what they do, but understanding your strengths and your weaknesses, it helps you so much in deciding where to put your energy into, and understanding what gives you joy and what puts you in that sort of flow state. And I mean, at an agency, it's always busy. You always got to do something that you don't like, but it's nice to know, understand about yourself what you need to do, or what button you need to press to get back to your happy place. And I wish that for everybody. Like I know that there's people out there that are sort of stuck in a position like they're just grinding out every day.
Right.
And I think a big part of breaking through that is understanding what drives you and what you're good at, because that gives you the confidence to take a step somewhere and to say, like, I know that this thing is fun for me, or this is something I'm good at, and I can do.
Wise beyond your years, Bob. Like, insightful and down to earth. It's been a complete pleasure. People
Likewise.
want to reach out. Those of you listening, those people listening, where can they find you?
I'm on LinkedIn, so it's just my first name, last name. I don't know. I'm sure that's posted somewhere here. That's my LinkedIn handle as well. If you want to listen to the podcast, it's The Secret Ingredient with an A instead of an E on Spotify.
On Spotify, right?
Yeah, I think we're on the other podcast channels with Google. We're on. It's on YouTube as well. If you want to see it. If you're non-Dutch, then you would want to go to YouTube because that gives you the subtitles.
Ooh, yeah. We should also say,
yeah.
Bob shares on his LinkedIn the Secret Ingredient clips. They are in Dutch. However, when you watch on YouTube, which I do, turn on closed captioning and you can read their words if you want to read it in English.
Yeah. Yeah, we're prioritizing in Dutch for now because that's our target market, and I think it's interesting to experiment there. Because I could do it in English just to make it international, but I think there's a interesting bit where it gets lost on the Dutch folk because it's in English. Mm-hmm. Even though we're pretty good at English, it feels a bit further away from home, I guess.
Agreed.
So that's the platform. LinkedIn is the best place, or obviously in the Sprocketeer community if you're one of those. I'm in there as Bob Balm as well. So
Bob is posting continuously answers and
probably
responses.
Not as much as some people, but yeah, I think I'm ranked second.
Are you second?
Maybe third by now. I used to be. I was second for a long time, right after you. Yeah.
Shadab checks all the time. I think he's in contention for sure.
Yeah, I think it's Nick second. I don't know. It doesn't matter.
Oh yeah, Nick as well. Nick is up there. Bob, thank you so much for sharing your story with us.
Thank you for giving me the opportunity. Absolutely.
Sprocketeers out there, thank you for listening. Thanks for being part of the community. To you, I say spinny, spinny, and we'll see you on the next one.
Yeah.
Take care.
Guys.